Avatar: The Last Airbender is considered by many as one of the best cartoons ever made, at the very least one of the best cartoons made in the past 2 decades. The sheer amount of stuff that it had going for it was just insane at the time. It had some very interesting and just overall stellar world building, some of the most unique and well choreographed action sequences in animation, and on top of that, it was able to portray these mature themes to an audience of children, yet it never talked down to them. It was a show that respected its audience, so therefore people of every age watched it and enjoyed it. It got so massive in popularity that Hollywood attempted a live action, and it was pretty shit. And here Netflix comes to run it back with their live action Avatar series. Now honestly, I haven't really kept any tabs on it. I haven't seen any of the trailers. The most I've seen are some clips on Twitter and some of the comments that the showrunners made about some of the characters and I guess the overall direction for these 8 episodes. But outside of that, I'm going in completely blind. I'm not expecting a complete 101 translation of the first season, or the first book rather, but I am trying to hope that it can at the very least be a fun and entertaining watch. And yeah, like that's my biggest want out of this. So let's see what future me thinks. Oh boy. Alright, so I don't have a script. I'm not gonna do any fancy editing. All I got are the notes in my little notebook here, some caffeine, and a dream. So yeah, let's talk about Avatar. I want to preface this by saying that I personally am a survivor of the M. Night Shyamalan movie back in 2010. I saw it opening weekend with my father, and yeah, it was pretty bad, but everyone knows that. And that is probably the worst project that's ever been created for the Avatar franchise, like ever. So yeah, I will say that the show is better than that movie, but again, that's not really a high bar to cross. Just gonna flat out say it. And before you click off, please do keep in mind that it's still Black History Month, so if you leave right now, you may or may not be a racist. I'm just saying. Yeah, I don't like it. I tried really hard to though. I went into this with pretty much no expectations. Like, I didn't watch the trailers. I didn't watch pretty much any of the promo material outside of maybe like a few clips on Twitter, but like nothing too substantial. And I still came out of it feeling kind of meh. Netflix's Avatar just isn't fun to watch. You know, like after you come home from a long day of work or school, you have a show you would put on or a video game or something that you can just unwind and relax with. Yeah, like this show isn't that. So they take 20 episodes worth of material and they condense and remix it to 8 episodes. 8 episodes that range from 40 minutes to like an hour, and it doesn't really mesh well to me. Like, yeah, so going into this and into most adaptations, like you should never really expect a 1-to-1 adaptation, but at least what I'm looking for is that the product can at the very least capture the energy and the spirit of the original. It's what I expected out of Yu Yu Hakusho's live action. It's what I expected out of, the One Piece live action. And One Piece did it great, Yu Yu Hakusho not so much. And Avatar just doesn't capture that magic. As soon as the showrunner came out and tweeted how like they wanted to, make a show that could appeal to the fans of the original and also to Game of Thrones, they wanted to make something that could appeal to both the original fans of the show and also to fans of Game of Thrones. And as soon as I heard that, I knew the show was cooked from the start. It's like, what the fuck did you mean? Like, where's the correlation? Like, those are 2 separate audiences. You have one audience for Game of Thrones that is mainly all for adults. There's a lot of shit that happens in Game of Thrones that would not be suitable for a younger audience. And in the Avatar series, you have a series that appeals to everyone, to kids and to adults alike. That's why parents could watch it with their kids and enjoy it as much as their kids did. It was a show that was for everyone and it appealed to everyone and it never talked down to anyone. So having the live action adaptation of that same show try to appeal to the Game of Thrones crowd too just doesn't work. But, you know, I'm going to hold off from, you know, all the negative talk for a second to try and talk about some of the things that I did enjoy about it, because I did enjoy a lot of the effort that was made here. So the first thing I can talk about is the casting. I like a lot of the casting choices made for the show. I think the casting department did a really good job. A lot of these actors portray the characters accurately enough. Like, I have some issues with them, like some character issues here and there, but for the most part, like, these guys look just like the characters and they capture the basic understanding of the characters they're portraying decently enough. The second thing I'll say is that I really like the soundtrack for the show. The soundtrack consists of like these orchestral remixed versions of tracks you hear in the show. Like, the main theme has a track, I think the theme for Azula is remixed there too, and I think the Cave of Two Lovers theme also makes an appearance around episode 4, I believe, when they were trying to get Aang out of prison. Let's see, what else? I'm really grasping at straws here. I like a lot of the costumes. The costumes from the show and their outfits are translated really well into live action. Like, the Aang and Sokka and Katara look like Aang, Sokka, and Katara. I really like the overall armor set and just the look of the Fire Nation in the show. I think they really did a great job in capturing that aesthetic, and it looks honestly really awesome in live action. But other than those positives, the rest of my feelings are kind of negative. So, alright, we're gonna go into that territory now. So, I don't really like the look of the show. Like, everything looks really weird. And I don't mean that in a sense of, oh, the CGI looks kind of shoddy, or I don't like how the bending looks, which I don't really, for the most part. It's kind of bad. But my main gripe is with the cinematography. Like, nothing really feels tangible. Netflix has this thing where like all of their productions have like a very shallow depth of field, and like it's almost like the actor is just in front of a green screen the entire time. And it probably is the case, but I feel like it could be done a lot better and in a much more in a better way to make the image look like it has more dimensions and that it has texture. Like, look, I could recreate this fucking shot on the green screen and it looks like we're in the same type of shit. Everything just looks so artificial. It reminds me of those like early to mid 2000s like kung fu movies where like everything looks really fucking fake, but it was carried by the action, so you kind of let it slide. It's kind of like this, but like the action in Avatar, this series here, just isn't all that great either. So I do like some of the bending effects, and I like how certain elements kind of work in live action, but you know, in the show, bending is treated as martial arts because it's inspired by martial arts. But I didn't really get that feeling from watching the fights in this show. It just seems like majority of the bending moves here just really come down to arm flailing, and it looks just not as unique as the series does. And yeah, I know, you shouldn't be comparing the series to this. You should try to judge this by being its own product, but it's kind of hard to. Like, they share the same fucking title and it's being adapted from one thing, and I kind of have to compare. Just like with other Netflix adaptations, character arcs are rushed through just to get to the action. This doesn't feel like an adventure. Like, there's no whimsy here. They really tried to aim for that darker tone, but Avatar has always had a mix. It could do darker tones and themes, yet also feel like a fun adventure story at the same time, because again, this also had to appeal to children. But this show, I just don't get who this is for. Is it for fans of the show to say, hey, that's a character I recognize, oh, they cut out that character? Because if you just watch this show by itself without having any knowledge of the original, it doesn't really stand out to me as much. It's not a bad watch by any means, but it's not something that I could see somebody going back to as much as people went back to Avatar. And hell, even to Korra. And Twitter hates Korra. So as you guys may have heard, a lot of characters have been kind of tweaked to translate into live action. Like, a lot of people made an issue about how Sokka's whole misogynistic kind of character trait was basically diminished in the live action because the showrunner felt like it wouldn't really work over here in this day and age or whatever. And it's like, I don't get that mindset. Like, Sokka's whole stance on misogyny was because he was the only male person. Oh no, fuck. A lot of the characters here are changed just for the hell of it. Like, Aang doesn't really feel like Aang. Like, I never get the idea that he's this really fun-loving kid. He's just always in shonen protagonist mode the entire time in the show. And when there are sequences where he's, you know, actually being fun and being like the Aang from the show, then it's really good. And I think the actor does a really great job at doing those moments. I just wish we had more moments like that instead of just this series that is constantly trying to rush through plot points in order to get over to the North Pole. And yeah, the action in the North Pole is good and it was fine or whatever, but it doesn't hit the same. Like, we don't really know these characters. We don't spend a lot of time with them. We're constantly going from point A to point B to point C with no type of deviation in the middle at all. And everything they do add just takes away from the overall experience. So, again, would I recommend the show? Not really. I wouldn't recommend it if you're a fan of the original at all. And hell, even if you're like a person that's interested in Avatar and you want to start somewhere, just start with the show. The show is right there. You would get a lot more out of the show. And, oh yeah, animation's for kids. Like, that's such a dumb fucking argument. Animation's awesome. You know, like, I hate this whole stigma that animation is a kiddie thing. Like, some of the best movies ever made are animated. Fucking Spider-Verse, fucking Shrek 2, Cars, all bangers. Top 3 films of all time. Don't at me. It's 2024. If you still think animation is solely a kid's medium, then you're just stupid. I'm sorry. So like the earliest part in the show where I really felt like this isn't really my thing is when we actually got to see the assault on the air temple. So in the show, we never really got to see how it went down exactly. We just got basically glimpses of it. We saw the skeletons of Gyatso with all the Fire Nation soldiers around him. And it was cryptic, yet it told you so much with so little. And it didn't spend time spending budget on this entire fucking sequence here. Which, yeah, I get it, you know, Netflix, y'all got money, y'all want to show it off. I understand, but I feel like this wasn't really necessary to get the same idea across. Having Sozin be the one to kill Gyatso just seemed like it was a bit too much. Like, yeah, you know, we gotta show how this Fire Lord person is really evil. Let's show him killing off the mentor of our main character. Ooh, like, you didn't really have to do that. I think how it was executed in the show was a lot better, and also a lot cooler, because like, when we see this image, we just have to like picture in our minds like what exactly took place here. So I've seen tweets about how people are saying that like Gyatso had to basically take the oxygen out of the room to kill not only himself but every firebender in that bitch, and like that is such a fire concept to me. But again, like, it's not left up to interpretation in a live action, and I think it kind of makes for a worse scene. But hey, like, maybe that's just me in my opinion, who knows. So yeah, I didn't really have a fun time watching this, like I said before. If there's a season 2, I'll probably check it out of curiosity, but I'm not committed to watching any more of this live action. If it gets better in the future, that's a good thing. Probably won't, but who knows. And hey, look, if you're a person that really enjoyed these episodes, that really enjoyed seeing these characters in the live action and thought this was perfectly fine, then hey, you know what? More power to you. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you enjoyed your experience. This is all just my perspective and my personal opinion, and Netflix's Avatar just wasn't for me.